How to train your algorithm. I'm going to do the fancy graphic. Yes. So, early lockdowns, right? I think there were several articles that came out about the algorithm, this kind of mysterious word that gets thrown around a lot. What is an algorithm, right? Well, it's easily on one level. Michael calls it a recipe, which I kind of rather like. There's this idea that like you put a set of instructions in and then you get this result on the other end, right? So the way you code it is in just very basic terms, you write a set of instructions and then this and then there's this thing that gets created that will follow that set of instructions. Often those set of instructions have this capacity where the algorithm can learn, right? So it's going to take whatever's coming to it and respond to it. So it's not just following the set of instructions, but it's following the set of instructions to then grow and learn and respond. Right. So then there's a whole other thing that's starting to happen within that system. So that's really interesting, right? It's really kind of basic mental model of how, of how the mind works, even, right? How thinking works. But without kind of going too far in that direction in AI, right? These are basic AIs, artificial intelligences. So when we first started getting, I feel like there was just a bunch of articles that I saw come out about be careful, beware of the algorithm, be careful of the algorithm. And it was always kind of the singular thing. And the way they were talking about it just really struck me as they're talking about like a being. They're not just talking about this object, right? They're talking about it like it's a physical or non-physical, but definitely like living being of some type. And because that's how I think of the world anyway, it just kind of, if everything is alive, well, shit, so is our technology, right? And so I just started wondering and kind of musing about, well, if an algorithm is a more than human entity, I think we can call it an entity, even if, however you want to think about it. For our purposes, we're going to call it a more than human entity. What is a more than human entity? Well, I think in past history, we can definitely say a demon is a more than human entity. Angels, fairies, aliens, there are these energies and things alive in the world that we experience in a variety of different ways, whether they happen kind of in an imaginal realm, an experiential realm, or both. Those things overlap, obviously. It's not just, these have names and these have experiences. And I posit, that an algorithm is very similar to this kind of experience in the world of energies ensouled. The world, all of it is alive, right? If you think of animism, which is normative consciousness, as we've talked about before, animism is kind of our default way of viewing the world. When you're a little child, you are born into the world looking at everything as a living thing. We get taught that they're not as we get older, but when we look at it as a child or in the eyes of a child, that's how we experience the world kind of as default mode. And then, of course, if we think of cultures all over the world and throughout history, we have thought of the world as a living and souled entity far longer than we haven't, right? This is our normal state of being. And specifically still, if we think of, Japanese culture, the yokai are the living, the depicted embodiments of these energies and these beings that are alive are all around us all the time. So I like thinking of it in this way, and there are beneficial Yokai, there are demonic and non-beneficial yokai, and most of them are ambiguous. Most of them go either way, and it depends on how you interact with them as to how they'll interact with you. So this is my sketch of an algorithm. So an algorithm is a class of beings, because every social media, every search engine, every app has its own. It's not like there's one algorithm controlling them all. This isn't like a ring of power situation. There's a lot of algorithms, but they're all in a class of being, a class of more than human entity that learn, adapt, and predict. Now, the important thing here is that they interact with each of us in an individualized capacity, yet they also function as kind of a collective organization that learns and behaves from that individual interaction. So they are both an individual and a collective at the same time. So that's a really interesting relationship, as kind of thinking about what an entity is anyway. So in a very kind of almost like an ecosystem, right? The way we conceptualize of an ecosystem, it's that there are individuals within this ecosystem that are connected into a much larger structure that still functions as a whole. And if you take that kind of as a thought soup all together, then I feel like that's kind of the best way to conceptualize what an algorithm is. What this individualized capacity of an algorithm does is it's a mirror, essentially. It's creating an avatar of you, of all of us individually, that responds to, again, it depends on which app you're on. Each one is a little bit different. So if I'm on, let's just, because I'm using Facebook, Netflix is let's just use Facebook as an example. Like if I'm on Facebook, it measures, and Instagram, again, they party together. Those two are very, very interrelated. If I'm on either of these apps and I'm looking at something and I click like, or I click the heart button, it's not only measuring that I clicked that like, it's measuring how long I'm looking at that image, whether or not I read it, right? Because it's measuring how long I'm looking at it. So it's understanding that I'm reading that text. If I reply to it or comment on it, then that's a whole other thing. So it's now taking information from all of how I'm interacting. It's also, of course, understanding when I'm flipping through something and I don't look at it at all, right? So it's taking all of this information and it's creating an avatar of me and my likes, my dislikes, my habits, my scrolling capacity, my time on, as we just heard in the podcast, time on the machine, right? It's taking into account all of these things, and it's literally creating a facsimile of myself that does this. So it now has a me mapped in its system that it's using to predict my actions. And a lot of these things, there's this kind of now, adage of like, well, Facebook knows you're pregnant before you do, so it's so good at this that it does make predictions to you before you even know consciously that you're doing it, because it's tapping into something of our unconscious mind with our behavior patterns and how we behave almost on an unconscious level. So it can then feed back some of this information to us. This sounds terrifying on some level, but I think it's also, if you look at it in a different way, can be really fascinating, right? So now there's this other me that exists in this virtual sphere, that's feeding the information, right? There's no, and this is a big one, there's no positive or negative judgment in the algorithm itself. It doesn't give a shit, it doesn't care Like there's no benevolence or evilness within that algorithm at all. It's just responding to what you're doing. So it's really neutral in this weird sort of way. The thing, the thing that can get dicey is how you're reacting and what you're reacting to, right? So it's a funny thing about kind of, again, like we heard in the podcast, this is about human nature. There's nothing inherently like evil or good about it. It's just that we as monkeys essentially do certain things. And this is extremely good at identifying our very basic monkey tendencies. So I like to think of, you can either be swept away and let these tendencies kind of rule your experience, or we can take a step back. If we know this is happening, right? And the knowledge is power. If we know this is happening, we can establish a relationship. So the guy on the left there is about to get, is trying to be like, don't do it. That's a fairy ring. You're going to step into that fairy ring and 100 years is going to go by in a flash of an instant and you're done. No one's ever going to see you again. You're going to wake up in the future and you're screwed. Your life is screwed. So we get carried away by the fairy ring. It looks so fun. I love scrolling. Like, look at all this stuff. Oh my God. Like, look at all this terrible stuff. Like, I'm so mad. I'm going to click like and comment and get angry about it. I can get really swept away in this stuff, right? Or this is that famous engraving of Dee and Kelly summoning a dead person. But the notion of ritual magic is that you protect yourself. You've got your little circle of protection, and then you have another little box that you bring up your demonic or dead entity in. You summon up your demon, you summon up your dead, whoever you're trying to contact. And they've got their little box. So in a weird way, that the little box is our phone. We're summoning up this entity. And if we are protected as well, we can establish this relationship with this entity that's not going to fuck us up. Because the same idea in ritual magic is, if you don't have those containing boxes, you're screwed, because that entity is going to inhabit you and is going to ruin your life. Sounds familiar? We can learn so much from ritual magic. So if you already have an avatar, you've already got this person, like it's happened. It's already there, like there's no going back now. We're already in the future. This is our sci-fi, future that we've all been reading about. It's here. We're living it. You have an avatar. You have a voodoo doll version of yourself in every single one of those apps. So there's a lot of you out there. Who do you want this avatar to help you be? We have the opportunity to craft this version of ourselves, this virtual version of ourselves, multiple versions of ourselves, multiple selves, if you will, that will reflect back to us our highest nature. Right now, often, because we let it sweep us away, we're that guy in the fairy ring, often it's reflecting back our lowest nature, because things that are inflammatory get clicks. Things that are upsetting get looked at longer than things that are not upsetting, right? If you're upset by something, you're going to look at it and you're going to feel those emotions and you're going to react, right? That's, again, simple monkey, basic human things. This is just how we function. There's nothing wrong with that, but that is how we function. So if what do I give my attention to directly influences this other version of myself that is going to feed that back to me. So you can either be this lady in the funhouse mirror, or you can really try and help this more than human entity help you back. And I think, so here's like just a basic thought exercise. You can write this, I can write this down just so you are clear, because I think, like, again, while all these things and regulations are getting worked on in the background, we're still subject to this right now. And if we know what our values are, if you are clear about your values and what you care about and what you want out of each of these apps, because that's all they are, right? What do you want out of Facebook? What do you want out of YouTube? So what I wrote down here is what I use my YouTube for. What do I want my YouTube to do for me? Right? It's my YouTube. It's going to form fit itself around my needs. What do I want it to tell me? Right? This isn't something that it tells me what it wants. No, I'm going to tell that algorithm what I want to experience. So what do I care about? I care about Western esoteric studies from people that actually either know what they're talking about or have degrees. There's a lot of people out there that just spew nonsense, which is interesting and funny, but like there's a distinction there. So I prefer people that have either academic degrees or some kind of level of knowledge that's equivalent to that. Music, I get my classical music, I get sleep time music, I do my long mixes from Japanese EDM. I love it, right? So like I get music from YouTube. I get tarot videos. I like tarot videos. I watch them. Some of them are really great. Cute pet videos and talking parrot videos, a must. I definitely have those in my liked and in my feed, right? Things about ancient civilizations. This also can get very murky very quickly. I try to maintain and only like and watch the things that I feel to be kind of scholastically accredited, right? So I have narrowed down some of these fields into very specific things. I'll talk about in a minute about how to really be clear with that with your algorithm. But this is what I care about. This is my list of things that I want YouTube to give me. Now, what is lurking right around the corner from all of these videos every single time I'm on it are a variety of conspiracy theories. It's gotten better at not recommending those to me over the months because I don't click on them, right? So it doesn't really give those to me as much as it used to, but because I do fall into a category of people that watch those regularly, watch inflammatory videos on certain subjects. It used to recommend them to me all the time, but because I've never clicked on them, it does not anymore. So higher vibrational supremacy content. There's always those, YouTube gurus are a thing. Of course, I'm sure we all are well aware. False gurus also falls into this. And there's definitely people on there that are so higher vibrational that they fall into kind of like a white supremacy group, right? They're so high vibrational, they can't tolerate anyone's negative energy, right? They're out there. There's a lot of these things, and they make a lot of really funny videos. This sometimes I do watch for comedic value, but I really try not to indulge because again, it knows what I'm watching. So limit some of that stuff, as well as clickbait, right? This is always around. It's always right there in my recommendations. So I think now, like I've kind of mentioned this quite a bit, but I think it's time to meet said algorithms. I think this is really funny. I was really having a good time doing this. Facebook. This is a big one. Obviously, we all interact on Facebook. This is the Facebook algorithm as I conceptualize it. This is a great little image I found on the internet. So, personality watches your every move like a hawk, literally. It wants to keep you engaged. So Facebook's one of its whole things is to keep you on it and that you don't leave. So as Aza on the podcast is the inventor of the infinite scroll, right? You can scroll forever on Facebook. It doesn't end. Even in Facebook apps, you can scroll. The ads. You can scroll forever on said ad of whatever it's showing you, right? If there's infinite photos there of whatever it is you're looking at, it will keep you going as long as you're swiping, right? So it wants to keep you there. It's going to give you that same kind of slot machine a quality of like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. I wonder, oh, maybe this next thing is exactly what I want to see. Oh, I wonder if my friend so-and-so, you know, right? It's got that like grip. So also though, it happily does what you want it to do once it understands what you are asking for. It's going to keep doing that to you. And it's going to respond to what you're responding to. So this is one of those, like all of them, really, it needs a firm hand. I should say they need a firm hand and they need consistency. Like a dog, right? Like you can't train a dog if you're all over the place. Your dog is going to be a mess. You know, so if you're all over the place, so is your algorithm. Your algorithm is going to be a disaster. It's going to show you all sorts of crazy shit. And you're like, what's going on with the world, right? This is a difficult, like I would consider this a moderate to hard level training, because Facebook by its very nature is trying, in its initial conception, it was trying to connect you with the people that you care about, right? So there is very much an emotional level of trying to connect with your friends and family and see what they're doing. That's the whole point, right? And then you like it and you're like, oh, I'm so glad you got married, whatever, you know, like, look at that amazing painting you just did, like, comment, you know. This is kind of the underlying capacity of what Facebook is. Now, what Facebook has become is sponsored ads, sponsored content that wants you to click on those things so that they make money, right? Every time you click on it, you make money, they make money. Every time you buy something from it, they make even more money. Every time you're engaged with that kind of content, the more of that shit you're going to get. Now, this is where you have to be really careful. Not only do you have to be conscious of who you're liking and why, right? I want to see more of my art friends, so I will only like my art friends, right? I don't want to see some of those other people. I don't even know who they are, but I want to see my art friends. So I'm going to like and respond to all of those posts because that's who I want to see more of. It's really pushing groups right now, right? So the groups that I want to see are the ones I'm going to interact with. Now, if it's showing me too many groups, I'm going to go and actually search for one of my friends that I haven't seen on there a while because it keeps flooding me with my fucking groups. And I'm going to search for them and I'm going to like a bunch of their stuff. It helps balance it out. Now, it's a lot of work. It's a pain in the butt, but just some tips on how to try and work with it, right? Especially with ads, only look at and like the ads that you actually want to see. If I'm interested in getting, you know, kind of certain types of like algae supplements and essential oils and vintage clothing, I'm serious, those are the ads that I want to get. So those are the things that I'm going to like and respond to. Right. And then it will feed me more of that stuff because I have responded to it. So that's what I mean. Facebook is hard because it's constantly trying to win you over. So it's always doing stuff to make you more engaged and potentially even more enraged, you know. So it's all about trying to manage that relationship. So this is a tough one. It's very good at what it does, and they really this algorithm is really yeah, it's just really good at what they do, you know. And so okay, let's move to the next one because this one relates. Instagram. So if you notice that this guy has a party hat on, this guy has a party hat on, because guess what? They party together. Instagram is owned by Facebook now, of course, as we all know. And as we watched that transition happen, the way Instagram functions really changed, right? So Instagram's algorithm and Facebook's algorithm are linked together. They party together. They talk all the time. This is definitely that friend that cannot keep a secret. You tell the Instagram algorithm something, it is going to tell its Facebook friend algorithm in like a second, and you are going to see content shared on these two things. So ads I see on Instagram will influence ads I see on Facebook, right? Hashtags and other types of things, same thing. I'm going to like my friends, my art friends, the art I want to see, the art I follow is what I'm going to like. I'm going to search for similar content. Now, Hashtags, same thing. Only follow hashtags you care about, because they will totally influence what your feed is and how you're looking at it. Spend more time reading your friends' posts and people that you care about posts, rather than things that are appalling or terrifying. I get my appalling and terrifying sources from somewhere else. I do not need Instagram and Facebook to be my news sources. I think that is also a key point here. And YouTube. So I only chose 3 because this could go on forever, but YouTube is a big one. I think all of us engage with YouTube, I'm sure. Personality of YouTube is I like thinking of YouTube looking like this. It's always on. It's like, hey, I've got all this stuff for you. I'm so excited about it. You should be really excited about it too. It wants to keep you there binging videos. Like, they want you to really go down that wormhole. The nice thing about the YouTube algorithm is it is actually pretty easy to train. If you can kind of moderate your own behavior of like what you watch and what you're interested in, again, make a list, if that's helpful for you. Just be clear about what you want this little algorithm to give you, because it's happily going to give it to you. This is what it wants to do, but it will not again, consistency, direction, if you're all over the place, it's going to be all over the place, but it's really good at figuring out what you like and giving that to you. Do not go down insane wormholes. Those wormholes will lead you in a direction that is by research proven that the YouTube wormholes end up going in a radicalized way, because at some point down, 5-6 videos in there, you will start getting content that is fringe, that is specifically there for you to click on. Because again, what does this algorithm want you to do? They want you to stay there longer. They want to keep your attention. And now if I'm 6 videos in, my attention is starting to waver. So it's going to throw me something that I'm like, what the fuck? And I click on it, right? That's what they're there for. That is what it's doing. That's on purpose. So I like to set a limit of 3 videos for myself. After 3 videos, close the app, go do something else, take a break, just get up, don't do it. Mindfulness, a little bit of self-control. Don't watch that other video, whatever it says. Also, this is a big one. Subscribe and actually use your subscribed channels. Try not to allow YouTube to, well, let me put it this way. Don't just click on the videos that pop up after the video's over, right? There's always videos on the side, and then you can search for videos that are specific. Then once you're finished watching the video, it's going to be like, watch the next video in the cycle. And there's a bunch of videos that pop up on that screen. So don't do that. Don't click on one of those. Just stop, click on something else or search for it yourself. Once it starts getting you into that recommendation pop-up place, that's where it starts really trying to hook you. So be intentional about what you're searching for and what you're looking for. And then I think, there is a way that we can live with our algorithms in a thriving and happy way. I think, again, just be clear on what we want these apps for. Get your news from a trusted news source. Do not rely on YouTube or Facebook for news. That is not productive. Those are not news sources. They were never meant to be. They just aren't, right? That's not news. There are news sources, so get your news from there. Use Facebook as it's originally intended for, as a place to connect with friends from, old and new, and the groups and things like that are really useful if you use them wisely. Same thing with YouTube, right? YouTube is a great place to learn things, to get information and music, and it's such a wonderful forum. However, again, just be clear on what you want that algorithm to give you, and it will give it to you. I think same with Instagram too, right? Like, just be clear with what you want to see on your feed. I think as artists, we're really lucky because we get to see a lot of other art. And if that's what you're using Instagram for, is your art platform, then it is perfect for that. And just be clear with Instagram that that's what you want it to do. So there we are, thriving with our algorithms, and living our best lives. So coming back, just kind of in conclusion, what this sounds like, what it sounds like I'm saying is that um, the critique potentially to all of this is that, well, you're just building yourself an echo chamber of your own stuff. How are you going to learn anything that's new? Again, be clear with what you want your algorithms to do. So my news source tells me something new. I trust National Geographic as a source for things all over the world, right? I read those articles. I look at that. I have certain news sources that I read and I follow. So I am exposed to the kind of world environment in the way I choose to receive that information. YouTube, knowing my parameters, does recommend things to me that I will look at. Now I have to, this is, the thriving with your algorithms, a big part of that is being in your agency throughout this entire experience. Not like the guy with the fairy ring. The guy who goes off to the fairy ring has lost his agency. He's lost his self. It's over, right? That guy's screwed. But if you're doing ritual magic in that image, you are calling this up on purpose. You are asking something from that entity on purpose to do something for you. And I think that is the best type of relationship, right? You are not building an echo chamber. You are calling up something that has a specific purpose that you use it for. And I think that's how we establish relationship with these things. That's how we, I'd love to talk a little bit next time about how to build the best version of yourself through these channels, but that's how we start to do it. Just be really clear with what you want, and be clear with why you're there. Set time limits for yourself if you need to. This is all about kind of algorithm hygiene, and being specific, clear, and consistent is the best way, and it will definitely help cut that cord, cut that unintentional kind of zone that we get in, just like in the podcast they say, right? That terrible, bad flow state, not a good flow state, the bad flow state of just scrolling and just getting lost and feeling empty. There is a way to work with these things where you can feel fulfilled, you can get what you want out of it and still lead a productive and healthy life and keep your agency throughout the entire thing.